Hey, all you genius animators and artists out there, and welcome to a special Claymation demo. I'm Tommy Sims.
And I'm Jamie Hazelwood.
And today, we're going to turn you all into mighty morphin animators.
Cowabunga!
Now, today, we'll be morphing clay into different shapes and objects.
So, morphing, by its definition, means you're going to be taking something like this, a little lump of clay, turning one shape into another shape. Now, it's something that can easily be done with your hands, just, morphing it around here, squishing it around, turning it into that shape. But it's another thing to actually make a little animation film, where I could take a little blob here, and just through a simple little rolling like that, already make it starting to look like a banana. But instead of actually just using it with our hands, we could take each little pictures of it and actually turn it into a cool little film. Because what you can do with a lot of your animations is to turn smooth animations of object transformations.
Right, and as Jamie was saying, this is basically sculpting, but while you're sculpting, you'll be taking pictures every single step of the way, basically animating your inanimate object into a box or a ball or a bottle or a key or flowers. So I guess without further ado, it's morphin time. So let's start off with, if you think back to our previous animation demos, we had touched upon the timing for animation, and we'll be starting off with that here by having our clay blob roll into frame here. So I'm going to start up my camera. There we go, we got it on and rolling. And I'm going to first take a couple initial establishing shots. And once again, the establishing shot is just a still image that you would take of your scene to set the scene and let your audience know what or where the action is going to be taking place. And while flipping back and forth on your camera viewing the pictures, this also lets you know when your animation begins.
Yeah, it's a great little divider between little films, because you guys will probably be shooting a lot of these same films right on the same camera, so it's a good way for your mental note to kind of see where every animation is.
What you can also do is create a title card that says, like, morphing animation by your name. But we'll touch upon title cards at a later demonstration.
Right, because right now, for our demonstration purposes, this is mainly learning about techniques.
Alright, so we've got our establishing shots good to go. So I can place my clay blob in here and make sure that it is off frame to begin with, because we're going to have it roll into frame. And as you can see, from what you're viewing, you can see it there, but if you look closely on the camera here, it's not in the frame just yet. I'm actually going to have it squishing because we're going to have it turn into the ball first. And you can see that it's starting to pop into frame right now.
And remember, as kind of what we went through with our timing demos, if you'd want him to have a really slow entrance, you'd be barely moving him at all. Whereas if you wanted to come in rushing right into the scene, it'd be very little pictures. That way it kind of adds more of the speed element to it.
As you can see, I'm kind of mushing it as I move it along, just to give it a more kind of squishy quality as it kind of oozes into the frame here. So that way, once it turns into the ball, it can roll more smoothly. And as you notice, it's just one little sculpt at a time. I'm not doing too much work on it. And now we're going to have it start to take its ball shape. And I'm just going to keep rolling it to make it look like it's constantly moving while it morphs. And if need be, sometimes it's perfectly fine to pick up your piece of clay and then shape it into the shape you need. Just remember where you had it in your previous frame. And you can always hit the review button on your camera to double check that it lines up. And looking at mine, it seems to do so. So I'm just going to keep tweaking it here. Make it more round. And I'm just going to keep moving it just to keep your audience interested in what's going on screen here. And if your ball isn't a perfect sphere, that's perfectly fine, because if with all the little fingerprints and whatnot in it, it lets your audience know that you're working with a piece of clay, and people actually really appreciate seeing claymation being done. And it's a good way to show that this film was a very hands-on experience, and it made frame by frame by you, and they can see the artist's touch in every single frame. So now I'm just going to roll the ball a little bit more before we have it turn into the box. I should say morph into the box. I'm going to have it roll up and bounce into the box first. Now I'm going to take 2 pictures of it sitting there. And by doing that, it makes it look like it hit the box and bounced off. So I'm going to start distorting the object here. I'm going to have it keep rolling, but as it rolls, it's going to start to flatten out. And when I say flatten out, I mean the sides are going to flatten out, not the clay piece itself is going to flatten out. So as you can see, I'm creating kind of a cube already. It's not a perfect square just yet, but we're going to get there. Have it flip up and then squish into place. And now I'm not replicating the box exactly with the ribbons going across it. I'm just kind of creating the shape itself just to kind of get the idea.
And one thing to keep in mind, too, when you guys are doing this here, we have our lights right above us, and you can kind of see the shadows we're casting right there. That's why it's important when you guys are taking pictures to kind of back away when you do that, because otherwise you might get a lot of your shadow in the pictures. Which, obviously, since this is more of a beginner's tips and tricks with a lot of this stuff, you guys don't have to worry too much about it, because this is more about just learning about the morphing technique.
Right, when we play back the animation for you on the camera here, you'll see in the foreground at the very bottom of the camera that my hand shadow will be kind of moving back and forth and just kind of jiggling here and there. And because this is a demo, it's not that big of a deal. But once you get into your major films, we want to try and prevent that. And as you can see now, we've got our little cube shape here to represent the box.
And you even could go further and add, since one little, for the top of the box here is a little bit bigger than the other one, but now that we just got our basic square shape,
Now, before we have it morph into the bottle next, along with what Jamie was saying with the top and having it be a little bit bigger, we can pinch the bottom a little bit here and just try and make the top a little bit bigger by pushing it down.
and you also could use many techniques as far as sculpting and kind of scraping away parts here and there.
Right, I'm going to take one of my clay tools now that we had showed you in the clay tools demo. You can get a bunch of these at your local craft stores. They usually come in a package of multiple different tools for multiple uses. And you can kind of carve in the shape of the ribbons if you'd like. But before you do, you just want to do a little bit at a time just to kind of animate that. So as you can see, I kind of carved in there. It's a little hard to see with the lighting. Helps a little bit, but you'll be able to see it on the animation of the ribbon coming into play here. Now, for the ribbon going this way, I'm carving both sides at once just to give it a more animated feel, so it's not just one line moving one way. We're having the one line move in two separate directions to make it more interesting. I'm just going to wrap it around the sides now. And I'm going to do the same with this one over here, so that way they're all drooping at the same time.
Exactly, and you don't necessarily need to have these little pieces of clay that we're scraping away. Don't be afraid to scrape some away or add some on to whatever shape you need.
Right, and also if you don't have the tools, feel free to use your fingers.
Or really just get creative. Like, that's one of the big beauties of this type of medium. It's just really whatever idea you can come up with for whatever shape you need to create. You know, whether it be your finger, toothpicks, markers, anything you need.
Right, pencils are a great tool too. Besides writing, you can use them just like this tool here. It's got the pointy end, it's got a flatter end. Just you can take it and just kind of play around with the clay and see what kind of shapes you can create out of it.
Uh-oh, looks like you might have moved your camera a bit there, Tommy.
I did. I bumped the tripod that it was on. And I'm just going to review the images to see if they line up.
Good thing we went over how to do that in previous demos, huh?
Yep.
So then we know by default not to get too upset over it. It's just a matter of replicating exactly where you were.
Right. I'm going to take another picture now. I might not use this frame exactly, but I just want to double check to see that it doesn't shift too much.
Right, and obviously it's going to be next to impossible to try to get the exact angle that you had. So if you guys get pretty close, that's perfectly fine.
Right, and then also when this animation is playing through, that little jiggle won't be as noticeable as you think it might be. So now we're going to have the box turn into the bottle right now. I'm going to start moving it closer to the bottle. And I'm going to start squishing it together and making it a little bit taller. Obviously, with how much clay we have, it won't be the exact size of the bottle here, but we can still get the shape down.
Right, and that's kind of more what we're talking about. You don't necessarily need to get the exact scale of any sort of object you're trying to replicate. It's merely more about the actual shape itself. Because what I was explaining before, how I got just a simple banana shape, obviously no bananas are that small, or at least that I've ever heard of. But it's really more of, because I was able to replicate that shape, you guys knew that that was a banana.
Feel free to over-exaggerate it too. If you want to take your clay and pull it up even taller than the bottle and have it squish back down, the more stuff you do like that, the more animated it's going to actually look. Because right now we're just kind of going from one shape to the next. But if you add in more interesting things, like you say, if the ball completely squished and bounced back up into the box, it would be a lot more animated than just the ball turning into the box or the box turning into the bottle here. Or say, like, what I could do now is have this thing start to bend down and like twist into the bottle. And obviously keep in mind, the further apart your movements are, the faster the animation will look. And the smaller the movements, the slower it'll look.
And again, what we've been emphasizing before, just go at the comfortability that you guys have with this clay. You don't necessarily need to do super exaggerated animations. It looks a lot cooler, and we definitely want you guys to challenge yourselves, but don't be too over frustrated or over complicated with it as well. Because right now it's mainly about building a good foundation, for that way when we actually build our full-on characters and sets, you guys have a really good knowledge and really good comfortability with the clay and all the materials that we'll have.
So now I'm just starting to create the more round shape at the bottom here. By picking it up and just making sure I place it back in the relative similar spot that it was in, if not the exact spot. What you could do is kind of mark the base of where it was originally, and then just place it back down in the same spot every time.
Exactly, just making sure that the mark that you made just isn't visible.
Yep. You don't want to pick it up on the camera. So I'm actually going to make the bottle without the cork here, so I'm going to start squishing down the top here. Step by step so the camera picks up the movement. And as you can see, you just see a fingerprint inside of there, which gives it the look of the lip of the glass here. Now what I can do is take my clay tool or a pencil or something and just poke inside of there to make it look hollowed out.
Although, are you just randomly not wanting the cork to be in that picture there, Tommy?
Completely forgot about that, Jamie.
Ah. See, guys, we do this on purpose, so that way you guys can see. Right, Tommy? That was completely...
Right.
Yes.
I got all caught up in showing you guys exactly what I was making that I forgot to put the cork back. I'm going to go ahead and delete that frame without the cork in it, and then retake the picture again. I'm going to make the hole inside of the clay bottle a little bit bigger and just kind of shape the neck of it a little bit better.
And little examples like this just kind of goes to show you that even someone like me and Tommy still do like little mistakes here and there. So it's really not a big deal when all this stuff happens because they're easy fixes.
Yep. So now that we have the shape, I'm going to take a few shots of it as the bottle. And then if you guys remember back to some of our demos like the squash and stretch with the arches and the clay jumping, I'm going to try and do something like that now where I'm going to squash it down relatively fast, so it's a faster movement here. I'll take a few shots like that just so it kind of builds up energy before it springs into action here. And then make a shape like this and kind of arch it. And then to make it land on the other side, what you can do is take something and kind of mark in the middle here where the tip of this lines up. Pick it up and just turn it around. Make sure you get this out of the way before you take your picture. Take your picture, and then start to squash this down into the blob where it's landing. Now we're going to have this shape turn into the key. Now to begin, I'm going to start rolling it into the long shape of the key. Kind of bring it back into the center here so everybody can see it better. But I'm not just going to move it right away. I'm going to move it frame by frame. Like we've said time and time again, claymation is a very slow process, but it is well worth it in the end when you finally see everything come to life. And as we mentioned before, with the different scales of things, this key made out of clay might be a little bit larger or wider or thicker than the actual key here itself, but that's perfectly fine. We just kind of want to get the shape right. So I'm going to start squishing this out to make the end of the key that you hold on to. Now if you notice there's holes in the key here. What you can do is take your clay tool and start to poke holes in your key. And do small ones at first because they're going to grow into bigger holes. Make them a little bit larger now. And if you can, just kind of stick your finger in there to stretch them out a little bit further. Now it's a little stretched out too much, but that's fine because I'm going to go ahead and kind of shape it back into the shape that I want it to be for the next picture that I take. Just like that. Now I need to make the part of the key that actually goes into the lock, so I'm just going to squish this here. and start to shape it. Then I'm going to cut into this here. Kind of shape it a little bit more. And a little bit more. And then I'm going to start to spin it just so the camera can pick up on the shape that we just created. Now what we're going to have the key do is spin into the shape of a flower, which is our next object in the lineup of objects that we have to sculpt.
And since it'll be the last one and it's a more complicated shape from where it's at, it'll probably start to really pick up speed.
Yep. I'm going to start stretching the key out and kind of just misshaping it. And you can just kind of play around with the movement of your clay here. I just keep spinning it in the same direction so it looks more fluid. And then I'm just going to have it grow into the flower shape here. Now, to make it look like that rose, what I'm going to do is start to stretch out the top of it and kind of flatten it out and then wrap it around itself to make it look overlapped like that. So, like so. And my battery just died.
Uh-oh, now what, Tommy?
Well, good thing I had another battery charging, so that's what you want to be sure of, that before you begin animating, your battery is either fully charged, or if it's not fully charged, be sure to have another one handy. Now, unfortunately, I have to take my camera off the tripod to switch to the battery. And then after this, I just have to make sure that the shot is set up perfectly for the previous image so it lines up just as well as before. Just like when I accidentally bumped the camera here.
Right, a lot of these we're trying to almost purposely show you guys, so that way when you guys are doing these animations and you can run into situations like this, you can run back to our little demos here and it kind of goes through every little mistake that could possibly happen. So that way it shows that we're not getting overly exhausted or frustrated about it, because there's just quick little fixes. But it just goes to show you guys, if you get low in the battery, just always have one charging or ready to go. Or what you can also do is just, if you don't have one ready, you can also stop at a spot that'd be easy to just kind of pick up right back where you were.
Right, if you guys have an animation that the scene changes, right where the scene changes is a perfect place to stop and change the battery. So that way your battery is always fully charged and people won't notice if the camera changes position or not, because the whole picture changed from the previous one. So now I'm just kind of concentrating on the very top of the clay here to roll it up into the rose shape. And I just kind of keep squishing it as I go to make it longer. making sure I keep in mind the motion that the clay is doing. Because I could go this far over, but it would look like the clay went from here over to here really fast when we want to kind of have an in-between picture here. And then we can finally get over here. Stretch it even more. Now you're probably thinking this doesn't look too much like a flower just yet. But we're not fully finished yet.
All in good time.
There we go.
This could be also useful for making a delicious cinnamon roll.
Yep. Alright, so we have the top done. Now you're probably thinking it doesn't look too much like a flower just yet. So I'm going to squeeze the stem a little bit more and have it grow. And again. And again. And you'll notice that I just created one flower, not the entire pot of flowers that we have over there. You can feel free to make the entire pot with all of the flowers inside of it, but I'm just doing one just to simplify things and show you guys the technique here.
And another great little way to really sell it more is to take the tops there and to kind of add a little bit of weight so the tops kind of flop over themselves a little bit to make it look more like it bloomed.
Yep.
Which Tommy will show you here in a second.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, without that kind of little floppage down from the top there, it would almost look more like a cinnamon roll than a flower.
Right. So now what we can do is we're going to peel back the tops of the petals here, but we're not going to do it all at once. We're going to do just a little bit at a time, just to make it look more animated.
And it could get frustrating at this part too if you notice that the top will be a little bit more weighted than the bottom or your stem, which could eventually make it tip over.
Right.
But remember, it kind of goes back to what we're saying, just make sure to have the bottom reinforced, and that's why our little base there is quite a bit bigger than the actual stem itself and the rows.
Yep. So now that we made it bloom, I'm just going to have it spin one more time to get it back into a kind of resting spot that I'd like it in. And you can clearly see that it's more flower shaped on the side now than it was before.
Whoa!
Whoop, bumped it again. Just want to make sure everything's lined up again.
And as you guys can see from these demos, it happens quite often, so nothing to get too discouraged about.
Yep. But a way to prevent it, like I had said, was to tape the bottoms of the tripod to the ground. A simple fix. What I'm going to do now is just pinch out some leaves down here to make it look more flower-like. And I can take my clay tool and draw on some leaf detail. I don't want to do too many now that it'll make the bottom smaller and topple over. Just going to do a few to give you guys the idea that it's a flower.
Nice, nice.
And then I'll just take a few shots to finish it off for our final shot here, so I know where it ends when I look back through my animation here.
And then once we are done shooting, then we can move it around, so then it's not a big deal if we move the camera.
Right. Okay, now that I have a few final shots taken, I can hit the review button and show you guys our morphing animation. Let me just situate the camera so you can see it better. And I've got to rewind all the way back to our first image, so first you'll see it backwards.
And with the lighting with a lot of these, you guys probably can't see it as well, but once we're done with a lot of these demos, we'll kind of upload the little film that comes from our camera. That way you guys can see what we actually shot a little bit clearer.
Right. So we're getting close to the first shot that we took here. And there is our establishing shot. Now I can play it through forward, and let me try and get the camera a little bit better for you guys. You can probably see details more clearly now. But as you can see already down here, this blob right here, this black spot, is the shadow of my hand on top of the camera moving, because I had a light behind me to light up the scene better for you to see, but it wasn't the greatest for the animation because you see that movement down there.
But like we said, for demonstration purposes, it's not a big deal.
And there we have it, our morphing demonstration. Now you guys know what to do, so you can try this at home as well. And for extra bonus points, feel free to attempt to make the flower pot with all the flowers in it. And if you'd like, you could try and make it different colors as well, besides just the one color that we have here. So have a lot of fun with that, and I guess until next time, stay animated.
See you later, guys.